If you would have told me 10 years ago that in 2025, the American people would be going into debt to finance groceries, I would have thought it would just be some kind of sick joke. But that's where we are. Americans can't afford to buy groceries. If there was ever a sign that life in America was beginning to collapse, it has to be that Americans can no longer afford to feed their families. Everyone knows that it's bad. Everyone knows that over the past few years, things have gotten progressively worse, exponentially so. But during this entire time of hardship, we've been told that things are getting better every day, that the economy is getting stronger, that companies are making record-breaking profit, and that all we really need to do to get back on track as normal American people is to work harder. The fact is, they haven't been telling the truth of how bad things really are. And the effects of this kind of misinformation have reached into the lives of pretty much everyone that I know, and probably everyone that you know. Recent government statistics told us that the cost of food at home went up 1.2% in 2024. That isn't reality. That isn't reality for everyone. That isn't reality for anyone who's on the ground who actually lives in America. For the people who have to work to survive and work to provide, the truth is the effect and what we see at the stores tell us that the prices have gone up 10, 20, 30, 40%. And sometimes it feels like 50%. And this isn't for the luxuries. This is for everyday necessities, the commodities that we use in our everyday lives, the things that we buy that are necessary for us to just live, to go to work, and try to participate in the system that seems to make things ever increasingly more difficult. Those same government statistics also say that in 2025, those same home food costs are going to go up another 3.3%. And we should feel this year or this year and the next, the cost of those same necessities, the cost of groceries, the cost of food for our children to double. But still, when we look at the news, what does it say? The economy is getting stronger. Slowly and surely, America is getting back to where it needs to be. And at that point, we need to think to ourselves, what is America supposed to be? Where is that spot that they're trying to get to while we are suffering and things are getting more difficult, while at the same time, those who profit the most from this system are doing better than they ever have before. 6.5 million. That's the number of households in the United States that are experiencing childhood food insecurity. That's at least 6.5 million kids who don't know if they're going to be able to eat when they get home. And because policymakers for years now have been trying to do away with free lunches, how many of those kids have to go to school not knowing if they're going to be able to actually have a meal for lunch? What kind of desperation is acceptable for us? What kind of desperation are the American people expected to shoulder and smile, especially while knowing that things are going in the same direction as they have been? There's no promise that things are turning around. There's no signs that things are going to go in a better way. We can only look at the facts as they are now. And the facts show us that things are getting worse. And this has been going on long enough that I feel like people who sit back and say, well, my guy's in office now, so things should be getting better, are the same people who went through the last 4 years saying that things are getting better as they've gotten worse and worse and worse. Americans have to wake up, as I know many of you have, and realize that there's no political side that has their best interest in mind. There's no political side that is working towards their goals, only the goals of that political party and those who fund them. Because this, if anything else, is a glaring example of the failure of government and leadership. This is meant to be a government made by the people for the people. But at no time in my life have I felt like this government has represented its people, has worked for their best interest. And especially not now. Not when people are going into debt to put food on the table for their children. This is unacceptable. But still, the reaction when confronted with this kind of news for most people isn't to show empathy, it's to scoff and say that, well, their parents should work harder. Well, they should work harder. Well, they just need to do a little bit more. I think we're past that at this point. And if we're not past that, we're just in pure delusion. And we're accepting a reality of pure serfdom. We can no longer look to the government to provide for us. We must look to ourselves and our community to provide for each other. The family unit cannot exist, and the family unit is the backbone of America. But when 6.5 million households don't know if there's going to be food on the table for their children, how is that backbone not weak and prepared to break at any moment? Because that's what this is. The American people stand at the precipice, and they stand there alone with a strong wind to their back. And that wind is fueled by the greed of corporate politics. And now, while people struggle more in America than they've struggled ever before in living history, the media has gone into full distraction mode. There's no talk about cost of living. There's talk about tariffs and how things may go up and people may have to suffer a bit before things get better. But a population that's already crippled, a population that already has nowhere to go, a population that is clinging on to hope and clinging on to the homes that they live in, how much more can they bear, realistically, before they break, before the system breaks? Because understand that there's no way that this system works if the people cannot work. There's no way that this system continues to move in the direction that it's going if the people have no leg to stand on. And for those who say that the economy is getting stronger, we just have to be patient, I say to you that we are fully in a recession. We're fully in a recession if things don't move in a good direction. And if the momentum of things does not shift now, then the American people will be facing the inevitability of a new Great Depression. And it's one in which this government and the people are not ready to handle. And it is a time in the world where the wolves are at the gate. And for those who haven't seen my content before, I've lived outside the United States for a while now. And coming back, I'm having to really kind of understand the position that my people are in, the position that my nation is in. And the more I've learned, the more increasingly it is difficult to not say something. So saying something is exactly what I'm doing, and more people need to do so. This is a system without integrity, and it hasn't had integrity in a long time. And what's worse than having no integrity is that there's zero accountability. And all the systems that are meant to hold people accountable have been corrupted in a way that those same people are able to live free and reign roughshod over the American people. As long as the nation's divided, none of this will change. As long as people are at each other's throats, nothing will change, and that's exactly what it's been designed to do. The people are doing exactly what their masters want them to do. So break away and divest from these parties. Look to ourselves, look to community for the kind of support that we actually need. And it doesn't matter the things that we disagree on when kids aren't eating. That should be one thing that unites us all. And for the people who do find themselves in the position where they say that I feel bad for these kids, but their parents are dumb. That I feel bad for these kids, but it is what it is. And I say to you that you're not actually an American. I say to you that you failed your country and that you're no patriot like you say you are. It's in my opinion that patriots are the lions of the republic. And patriots should always be the biggest critics of their own government. I love my nation. I love my nation enough to say something about it. All the people who say to me, well, you should go back to where you came from, or maybe you should just leave this country, and say that you're no actual American. You're just a bit of a bootlicker to your master. And that's reality. You're a proud pawn, but a pawn nonetheless. And even the pawns eventually will go hungry. So you may be the last to the breadline, but to the breadline you will go. But the question has to be raised, how long can people sacrifice in this manner before enough is enough? And if people are unable to buy homes, unable to really afford their rent without being months behind in payments, the last step, the last red flag to be raised has to be the fact that people are financing food. And you could say, well, it's people's spending habits. Then I say that you've never actually been poor. You never really lost a job and realized that you don't have anything. That there's nowhere to get the money that you need. There's no one to talk to. There's no one that you can ask for help. It's a very difficult place to be in. And there's millions of people in this country right now that are facing that exact situation. And because I've been in that situation in my life, I empathize with them wholeheartedly. And I think most of us should at this point. We have to see people for the humans that they are instead of just the political opposition that you think they are. Because in the end of things, before the government was the government, it was the American people. The American people established that government, and that government has since then failed them again and again. Food is not a luxury. In this country, this shouldn't even be in the conversation. Not while we spend hundreds of billions of dollars on the military, not while we spend hundreds of billions of dollars on foreign wars, not while we spend hundreds of billions of dollars of foreign aid to people who do not care about us. And if our country collapsed, they would go to our enemy and ask them for help. We need to help people as we can, but if we're not helping ourselves, how could we expect this system to last any longer? We have to move beyond the supplication of the managerial, the political, and the bureaucratic class. We have to move beyond that. The mood of the day regarding these people should always be distrust and resentment, because look where they have driven us. It isn't the American people who spend all this country's money throw it away, and then decide to cut the value of the US dollar by printing money to no end. That's not the people. That's not the person next to you who voted. That's not the person on the other side of you who voted. Your neighbors are not your enemy. Your neighbors are the people that you can rely on. And I say that if you distrust your neighbors to the point that you won't even converse with them, that you have failed. You failed by putting an expectation of perfection on them. You've created a fog of war in the conversation that's led our nation to the place that it is right now, where people are going in debt to put food on their tables. 6.5 million. I want us to think about that number. 6.5 million. To me, that's an unfathomable number of households where kids don't have food. And I don't need to imagine what it feels like to be one of those children, because at one point I was one of those children. To grow up with a scarcity mindset holds you back your entire life, and it's something that eats away at you. It's something that robs magic from your childhood. And all children deserve to have some kind of magic in their lives. And for those patriots out there who want to question my credibility in saying something like that and just say, well, my father should have worked harder. The reason my father couldn't do anything is because he went to war. That was a man who sacrificed so much for his country that even to this day, his health is failing. But by God, he did everything that he could by what means he had to make sure that we still had magic in our lives, to let us know that the world is okay and that we'll be okay, because he was a good father. But in these days, I don't know if that would be enough, because things in the economy, things in American life weren't as difficult as they are now. There's a veneer of comfort, there's a veneer of convenience that we all see today. But at this point, we're starting to understand that underneath that veneer is the rot. And it's the rot that we have to confront. Or maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm just upset for no reason. Maybe you're just wrong and you're upset for no reason, but I don't think you are, and I don't think I am. We know reality because we experience reality every day, and we can't allow the gaslighting from media, we can't allow the gaslighting from the government tell us that everything's okay and everything's gonna be okay when they're doing the exact same thing as they've always done. Don't believe in it anymore. Look out for yourself and do what you have to do. While at the same time, try to support those who are in the same place as you are, if you can. Because we may not agree with each other all the time, but in the end, we are countrymen and we are people who share the same land together. We are neighbors, we are family, we are friends. And if you consider your neighbors your enemy and you rejoice in their struggles, then you're no compatriot of mine. If you find yourself struggling out there, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Do what you have to do. There's food banks, there's food stamps, there's WIC. There's programs out there to make sure that you and your children can be fed. Pursue those. Swallow your pride. And if you receive any kind of shame, realize that the people who would shame people who are struggling because they can't afford to feed themselves or feed their kids are not the people whose shame you should worry about. And those are bad people. And sadly, more and more, it seems like there's more bad people in our country. But we have to persist, we have to live, and we have to have the best kind of life that we can. And I appreciate you, and I hope all is well. And when you go to bed tonight, I hope that you have a full stomach. Thanks for stopping by.